She told me no, you're the one and kind. And she told me no, you're the one and kind.
All right, welcome. This is episode 2 of Inside the Music. I'm the Professor Fox. I was going to say your host, but I feel like that might not be right. I don't know. But today we are going to get into one of my favorite songs. If you had been tuning in earlier, you would have heard it. It's called The Worrying Kind. We are going to listen to it throughout the entirety of this process, so don't worry if you haven't heard it yet. But I want to start things off just by playing The Worrying Kind for everybody. So this is what came out in June of 2014. The song was written by Rachel Sarah Thomas, who at the time went by the moniker KSRA. And we put our blood, sweat, and tears into making this project. It's a part of a full EP called Petra that you can get off of Bandcamp right now. Support all the artists. Bandcamp is one of the best platforms that you can use right now to support an artist. It's KSRA, and the album is called Petra. I love every single song on there, but today we are talking about The Worrying Kind. And the reason why I chose The Worrying Kind is because this song went through such an evolution, and that's kind of the theme of today, is demoing and allowing your artist, allowing yourself as a producer to be free during the songwriting, during the production process. Right around this time in my life, I had just gotten to start hanging out with and working with and being mentored by a guy named DJ White Shadow. And for all you little monsters out there, that is Lady Gaga's right hand. White Shadow is another Chicago native, and he was talking to me about working with Lady Gaga and how they would have 97 versions of one song. And sometimes they were just subtle little changes, sometimes they were things like tempo or key, and other times they were almost just totally different arrangements, totally different lyrics, totally different melodies, and sometimes that's what it takes. So learning about this, it really let me kind of just take some pressure off myself as a producer. 2014 was 6 years ago. I was still pretty fresh on the scene, and this artist, KSRA, is one of the most gifted writers and one of the most brilliant singers I had ever met. So I was already intimidated working with her. But one of the things that we set up as a boundary, and I'm not one to really set boundaries now that I'm talking about letting yourself be free and loose and experimental, but one of the things that I learned from this process was setting up what's called a palette. And a lot of painters obviously will use a palette, where they will set their colors that they want to use for a particular painting. But for this record, and we're talking about 5 songs, we chose a bunch of sounds, but we limited ourselves to these sounds. So we created a sonic palette, if you will. And this sonic palette was drums, basses, synths, keyboards, pianos, you name it. But we put ourselves into a box a little bit sonically so that we weren't going out to the Cheesecake Factory every single day and looking over a 22-page menu, you know? So we built this palette, and as we start getting songs written and fleshed out, we start demoing. And we start demoing like crazy. And one of the interesting things about this record was we had a rehearsal space that was an auto body garage. Again, I'm not kidding. The rehearsal space was an auto body shop that had been converted into a rehearsal space. So I schlepped all my recording equipment to these rehearsals, and think of what a drum kit sounds like inside of an auto body garage. Massive. So naturally, this is where we cut drums. Now, if any of you are recording engineers, you understand that that comes as a double-edged sword, because yes, you're going to have some killer natural reverb, but you can't really unreverb your reverb. So we're going to get to what those drums sound like in a little bit. What's up, Edge? But yes, so as we start writing this song, we start demoing it, and on the first version that I'm going to play for you is one that we wrote and recorded inside the rehearsal space. We hadn't cut drums yet. We're going to try to go in chronological order as best as I can, but here is the very first version of The Worrying Kind. And this is from 2013. Gotta have a tambourine.
I went to my friend Mikey's just to relax and try and chill a while, to chill a while. But there I got my poems read, I got my poems read by a friend of mine, and she told me no.
Scratch vocals, of course, but this was all done with instruments that had been laying around at the rehearsal space. We hadn't really cut live drums yet, but we will get to hear a little bit of that space. This is a real shaker. Cool. Logic can't find that one audio file, so that's great. It's all your fault, Edge. But everything here that I'm showing you in the session, we cut live, no MIDI. We had a little guica in the shape of a frog. So I'm soloing this hand drum. You can hear the actual space, the reverb in it. Massive space. Again, all concrete, auto body shop. So this is where the song started. We had wheeled in a giant, what's it called? A giant dry erase board, and we started taking notes. And this song was inspired by everybody from Bob Marley to Major Lazer, and we wanted that bubble, that bubble that kind of gives you that like boom ticka boom ticka boom ticka boom ticka boom ticka boom ticka, all about that space between. And I think this is a pretty cool start. Now we're going to jump into the next iteration where we start bringing in some new musicians to play, and the song is going to evolve, and the song is going to start to take shape, and the melody is going to start getting ironed out. The lyrics are going to start getting ironed out. And what I love about demos is that you get to live with them. So as a producer, one of my foundations is living with an idea for long enough to fall in love with it, or to divorce yourself from that same idea. And so at this point, we're still in kind of the pre-production demoing phase, and the artist, Rachel, and myself are taking independent notes of what we like and what we don't like from this early version. And everything that makes the cut comes into the next iteration or the next idea of this. So we're meeting about a week in between every single time that we're working on this song. You gotta chill, Sophie. I have a house full of dogs. Anyway, so back to this. So this is version 2, and this is where the song starts to evolve. Hear those live drums? Still has that bump.
I went to my friend Mikey's just to relax and try and chill a while, to chill a while. But there I got my poem read, I got my poems read by a friend of mine, a friend of mine. And she told me, oh, no, no, you're the worrying kind, the worrying kind. Then she told me, no, you're the worrying kind, worrying kind. Oh, she said,
All right, this shit is dope as fuck. Thank you, Slot. So, we got our hands on some actual steel drums because if we're gonna try to tap into a Major Lazer, Bob Marley, we want to do it as authentically as we can. So, I'm gonna solo the steel drum track in that chorus. And keep in mind, this was 2013, so YouTubing how to play a steel drum was not as easy as it is in 2020. So a lot of trial and error, but I want to try to solo as much of the percussive elements as I can. One, again, no MIDI. Everything's played live. We've got real drums on here. And if you're watching on Twitch or you're watching on Desireless TV, you're able to see the session. And I've got so much chopped up. We probably spent, I don't know, 8 hours total doing just drum takes, just percussion takes. And this guy, of course, now that I'm talking about it, I cannot remember his last name. It's in my notes. But Christian played all the percussion, all the drums on this. And I went home after the session inside of this, again, auto body shop where we cut everything, chopped it all up. It is color coded. I am a freak about color coordination and just staying organized, so you can see on my session anything that was bright pink that made it into the verses, anything that was blue made it into the pre-chorus, anything that was rosy pink was a tribal drum. It's super fun. Here's what some of the drums sounded like by themselves. And again, this reverb is all natural. If I show you, I've got nothing happening. So that's what the Auto Body Garage sounded like. And this is the second take. This is our second idea, 7 days in between the first idea, and you can hear a much more mature sound starting to take shape. This is where a lot of the ideas came from. So again, for those of you that are just joining, my production process revolves around rehearsing, nailing down melodies, nailing down sounds. We started with what's called a sonic palette, where again, we put ourselves into somewhat of a box by saying these are only the sounds that we can use on this entire album. And that's a lot harder than you might think it is. So Worrying Kind Take 2 evolves into this. And for those of you drum heads, don't worry, I'm going to do a little bit on the entire drum session. So fret not, fret not. Waiting for Logic to get it going. Cool, here we go. Trying to find these EXS24 sounds. And this is where things start to get more into the Professor Fox realm. So here is the third iteration, third idea of Worrying Kind, third demo. Now we're at like probably 20 days into one song, and we haven't really made any keeper takes yet. We're going to end up using a lot of the drums, a lot of the percussion, but lyrics are still evolving, tempo is still evolving, key is still evolving, overall feel and timbre and direction is still evolving. So this is what I mean why it's so important to demo. Now I've chopped up a lot of those drums and that percussion from the first couple of days at the space. you, Silent. So here the song is really starting to take shape. Here we have lived with this song. We have ridden the train. We have ridden the bus. We have fallen asleep with headphones in. We have written scrupulous notes. We have made numerous revisions. We swapped out the real bass line, thank you to Herf Yamaya, with a synth bass to kind of give it more of this contemporary feel. Again, remember, Major Lazer was one of the big influences, one of the big reference tracks for this song. So we updated a lot of our sounds. I started to process a lot of the recordings of the drums that we took, but that reverb is still there, like I was talking about. So now we're adding some synths, we're adding a lot of MIDI, we are getting into finalized lyrics and melody. We have locked down the key. I will unmute the vocals.
I went to my friend Mikey's just to relax and try and chill a while.
Now, if you're familiar with the song, you might hear that the delivery is very different. And that's where vocal production comes into a whole new ball game. And if you were here at the very beginning of this, I started to say that Rachel Sarah Thomas, KSRA, intimidates me. Now, we've worked on dozens of songs together, both for our own projects, for other projects, but she can sing better than anybody. So me trying to tell her how to deliver a performance, I gotta do it. That's my job. That is my job as the producer. But you're going to start to pay attention to how she delivers these words, where she takes her breaks, where her voice lands in her range, and she has some range. But now we're in a lower register, and the song starts to get this maturity to it. Now we're starting to experiment more with the vocals and less with the actual musical arrangement. So let's take a listen.
I went to my friend Mikey's just to relax and try and chill a while. Ooh, but there I got my palms read. I got my palms read by a friend of mine, and she told me no. Oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. She told me no, oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. Yeah. She said something dramatic must have happened when I was just
Thank you for trying
5.
this
Ooh, I said no, that's impossible.
All right. So we've got a good understanding of where the song is starting to go. You can see that I have chopped up everything from the drum day. Everything from the drum day, which is going to be where we go to next. So drum day was super fun. We got to record drums, for those of you that are joining, in an auto body garage, which was converted into a rehearsal space. So all the reverb that you're hearing is this beautiful, elegant, concrete, organic reverb sound. And woof, what a roll of the dice. Because again, that could have sounded like absolute crud, or it could have been awesome. So here is the drum session. For those of you that are just tuning in, I've got my screen here on Twitch. It's at The Professor Fox, Facebook Live at Professor Fox, or you can tune into desirelist.com/TV and catch it live. So we've talked about color coordination. We've talked about chopping up the drums. If you're watching my screen, you can see that I've gone in sections. So here we have fuchsia, and fuchsia, take one with fill. This looks a little darker than fuchsia, so I'm going to say that this must be the God, I don't even know. Maybe this is magenta, maybe this is purple. This is purple. Who knows? But I went through take after take after take after take after take, and I color coordinated all the different parts that I was going to use in composing the drum beat for this song. So yes, again, spent 8 hours recording drums. 8 hours recording drums inside of an auto body garage. Shout out to Christian for playing the drums. And I went back through and meticulously color coordinated where I want all of my parts from each take, and then I blended the whole thing together. We can see reds, we can see golds, we can see browns, we can see my color chart right here. You gotta be on it. You gotta be meticulous with your organization, or else it all falls to pieces. I'm actually curious to see what this Worrying Kind instrumental was. Let's see what this is before we play the drums. We're gonna play the drums. Don't you worry. We're gonna play the drums. So this is like version 1.5. A lot of sound effects happening here. So we can see that I've got hand drums in this section. Whew, whew, whew. The bounce. I have not revisited this in a very long time. Just imagine that hundreds of beats are going to be made now. Oh, now I can't wait to see what everything is. Yeah, yeah. Just heat on top of heat on top of heat. So here's the kit. Here's the original bass line. Again, shout out to Christian and to Herf. And the drummer and the bass player played both to this instrumental. Now, another thing that I cannot stress enough is anytime anybody is recording acoustic drums, be sure to get what are called one hits. These are going to be isolated elements of the drum kit, so kick by itself, snare by itself, tom by itself, cymbals by itself, everything by itself, so that you can later on replace a sound. Let's say that you've got the perfect take. You've got the perfect take, but a stick breaks, or he misses the rim, or the fill just wasn't quite right. You can just grab one of your one shots and bring it on over. So this is a great look at my process. Again, I am meticulous, getting everything that I can, all recorded at the same spot, all recorded at the same day. That's very important. You cannot set up a drum kit and set up mics again and set up preamps and set up compressors and do everything a second time. It'll sound close, But if, gosh forbid, you have to blend takes from 2 separate days and the drum kit was moved or the drum kit was torn down, things aren't going to be in tune with themselves. Any change in microphone distance and proximity is going to be there. Any change in gain on your preamp is going to be there. Any ratio or compression settings are going to be there. And you're going to have to do a lot of work to try to mask that. And that's not what you came to do. So cut drums all at once for one song. I will leave it at that. Okay. So now before we get into the actual final session, where we break down the stems of what made the cut for the record that we all know and love, I'm going to play the finished version, mixed by Bill Procopo. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mix. Here it is. After all these different iterations, after a month and a half, I would say, of demoing and tweaking and changing and editing and doctoring and rewrites, here is the second track off of KSRA's EP Petra, The Worrying Kind.
I went to my friend Mikey's just to relax and try and chill a while. There I got my palms read by, I got my palms read by a friend of mine, and she told me no, oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. And she told me no, oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. And she told me no, oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. She said something dramatic must have happened when I was just 5. Ooh, I said no, that's impossible. I just grew up ahead of my time. And she told me no, oh no, 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 you're the worrying kind. And she told me no,
Man, I told y'all she could sing. So, that was the final mix master of Worrying Kind. We're going to pop into the session here. Again, mixed by Bill Procopo, a.k.a. Will Post. And I'm not going to show you all the secrets. So, of course, naturally, I'm not going to give you the full session. I'm just going to hit you with the stems. You can't pay me enough to show you the sauce. But here is what went down. So, Will Post, aka Bill Procopo, did a beautiful, beautiful job mixing this song. The EP, Petra, was super interesting because I was surrounded in Chicago by just people who mixed records with their own signature flair. And every song on the album was mixed by somebody else. Why not me, you might be asking? Well, two reasons. One, at this point in time, I was way better a producer than I was a mix engineer. Two, we had a big budget. A budget goes a long way. If the budget wasn't there, I'd be mixing my own shit. But the problem with being a producer that mixes is sometimes you get what I call demo-itis, or you get married to bad ideas. And again, working on one song for about a month and a half, you could imagine how long it took us to make a full-blown EP. So I got blinders, tunnel vision. I'm not able to objectively remove myself from the bad elements of a mix. I'm listening to things over and over and over and over and over and over, falling asleep with headphones in my ears. There's no way I'm going to make a good decision because I'm not mixing with fresh ears. I'm mixing with my heart. And I love these songs. I love these demos. So that's not good. That is not a good place for any mix engineer to be. So, of course, we send it off to be mixed by Will Post. We're going to hear another one of his mixes coming up in another episode. But we sent it off to Steve Anderson. We sent it off to Matt Hennessy. We sent it off to Matt Wheeler. We sent it off to Bill Procopo. And everybody crushed. Each song that I felt as a producer was germane to their style of mixing. Again, you can get the Petra EP, KSRA, at Bandcamp. Please buy it from Bandcamp. Don't go to iTunes. Don't stream it. Just go straight to Bandcamp. Buy it now. I'll post a link when I recycle this video, but it's KSRA, and the album is Petra, Petra. Bandcamp that, please. Put money directly into her pocket. She is a brilliant, brilliant artist. So, with all of that being said, I want to just kind of go through these stems with everybody before we wrap things up. Start thinking about your questions. Last week was great. We had a ton of great questions. I'm going to start with the drums because that's my favorite part of the song, next to her singing with the saxophone. Oh, gotta change this. Sorry, technical hiccup. There we go. And again, you can just hear that auto body shot. Large concrete walls, either perfect for recording drums or a nightmare for recording drums. Fuck that snare. Let's bring in that bass. What a bop. Let's bring some synths in. That's a real CS80. before we get to this last part now, the celebration, the jubilee that is the ending of this song, I'm going to take out the bass, I'm going to take out the drums, I'm going to take out the synths, and we are going to hear KSRA, Rachel Sarah Thomas, go toe-to-toe with one of the greatest saxophonists in the world. Brace yourselves.
You're the worrying kind. You're the worrying kind. You're the worrying. You're the worrying. You're the worrying. You're the worrying. You're the worrying kind. You're the worrying. You're the
Again, for a song that was made almost a decade ago, this shit is great. I can't thank everybody enough for tuning in. I cannot thank Rachel Sarah Thomas, KSRA, for giving me the opportunity to produce an entire record with you. This is still one of my favorite productions for a bunch of reasons. I've walked you through a plethora of them today, but this is one of the ones that just gets a permanent place on the resume. The process of making it, the amount of attempts that we went through demoing the song, the amount of versions, the moments of pure joy, the moments of pure frustration and hostility. You cannot make a record without shedding a little blood and shedding a couple of tears. That's a t-shirt. But I'm now open up the floodgates for questions. We've got some on Instagram. We've got some on Twitch. Again, I am the Professor Fox for anybody that just joined in. This was The Worrying Kind. This was episode 2 in my brand new series, Quarantine Presents Inside the Music. We can't call it Behind the Music because VH1 will probably have something to say about that. But this is Inside the Music. Last week, we went into Kids These Days, Vic Mensa, Macy Stewart, Liam Kazar, this powerhouse that happened in Chicago for a great moment in music history. And that video is now available on YouTube. That video is now available on my website. That video is available everywhere. So you can follow me on YouTube. It's just The Professor Fox. You're right, Dwayne. VH1 don't want no smoke. But I also don't want any smoke. I don't want it. I can't go to court looking like this. Old castaway. But any production questions, I'm open. Any songwriting questions, I'm open. Any vocal coaching production question, whatever. This has been so much fun. I can't believe that people actually want to listen to me talk about records that I make. I can't believe people actually listen to records that I make. It is just fantastic. And I thank everybody that's watching on Instagram. I thank everybody that's watching on Desire List. I thank everybody that's watching on Twitch. This is fantastic. I'm wrapping up very quickly, so we've only got a couple of minutes for a few questions. So let's see what the IG is saying. Oop. Oh, thank you, Victor. Tune in next week for sure. And this has nothing to do with anything, but if anybody wants to send me their music, now is the best time to do so. I just want to listen to shit. If you want my feedback, who the fuck am I? But if you want feedback, please give it to me, or I'll give it to you. But you can email me at theprofessorfox@gmail.com, or you can just throw a link in my DMs and I'll listen to it. If you want feedback, great. I will be happy to give it to you. If not, I won't. But that's it. I'm going to wrap this up, and thank you, everybody. Be safe. And it's the weekend. Bye.